Sarva Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. My humble obeisances to all assembled Vaishnavas in the most wonderful dham of Sri Mayapur, where the always fresh breezes of new devotion are spread in the air. Navina Shri Bhaktim Navakanaka Gaura Kriti Patim, and where Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī, always in new mellows of devotional service, is serving Krishna, and Krishna himself desired to taste these mellows, and therefore he came as Lord Śrī Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the most merciful incarnation, and therefore this place is so unique, Audarya Dham. So as Lord Chaitanya had a habit to discuss Srimad Bhagavatam with his devotees, we also, as adherents and followers, are doing the same. Srimad Bhagavata Rasa Svadanam Rasikai Saha Svajatiya in translation, that he is relishing the mellows of devotional service establishing Srimad Bhagavatam with his like-minded devotees, and therefore Srimad Bhagavatam, in his words, is Shastra Pradhan, the foundational scripture among all Vedic literature. So we are reading this morning from Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, chapter 4, text 20. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Kindly repeat after me. Śriyaḥ, patiḥ, yajña-patiḥ, prajā-patiḥ, dhiyāṁ, patiḥ, loka-patiḥ, dharā-patiḥ, gatiḥ, cāndhaka-vṛṣṇi-sātvatāṁ, prasīdatāṁ, मैं bhagavān satāṁ patiḥ. śriyaḥ-patir yajña-patiḥ prajā-patir. śriyaḥ-patir yajña-patiḥ prajā-patir. dhiyāṁ-patir loka-patir dharā-patiḥ. patir gatiś cāndhaka-vṛṣṇi-sātvatāṁ. patir gatiś cāndhaka-vṛṣṇi-sātvatāṁ. prasīdatāṁ me bhagavān satāṁ patiḥ. śriyaḥ-patir yajña-patiḥ prajā-patir. dhiyāṁ patir loka-patir dharā-patiḥ. Patir gatiś cāndhaka-vṛṣṇi-sātvatāṁ. Prasīdatāṁ me bhagavān satāṁ patiḥ. Prabhus. Mataji. Śriyaḥ, all opulence, patiḥ, the owner, yajña of sacrifice, patiḥ, the director, prajā-patir, the leader of all living entities, dhiyāṁ, of intelligence, patiḥ, the master, loka-patir, the proprietor of all planets, Dhara, earth, patihi, the supreme, patihi, head, gatihi, destination, cha, also, andhaka, one of the kings of the Yadu dynasty, Vrishni, the first king of the Yadu dynasty, Sattvatāṁ, the Yadus, prasīdatāṁ, be merciful, me, upon me, bhagavān, Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa, satāṁ, of all devotees, patihi, the Lord. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. May Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa, who is the worshipable Lord of all devotees, the protector and glory of all the kings like Andhaka and Vrishni of the Yadu dynasty, the husband of all goddesses of fortune, the director of all sacrifices, and therefore the leader of all living entities, the controller of all intelligence, the proprietor of all planets, spiritual and material, and the supreme incarnation on the earth, the supreme all in all, be merciful upon me. Since Śukadeva Gosvāmī is one of the prominent gata-vyalīkas who are freed from all misconceptions, he therefore expresses his own realized perception of Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa as being the sum total of all perfection. The personality of Godhead. Everyone is seeking the favor of the goddess of fortune, but people do not know that Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa is the beloved husband of all goddesses of fortune. In the Brahma-saṁhitā it is said that the Lord in his transcendental abode, Goloka Vṛndāvana, is accustomed to herding the Surabhi cows and is served there by hundreds of thousands of goddesses of fortune. All these goddesses of fortune are manifestations of his transcendental pleasure potency, hlādinī-śakti, in his internal energy. And when the Lord manifested himself on this earth, he partially displayed the activities of his pleasure potency in his rāsa-līlā, just to attract the conditioned souls, who are all after the phantasmagoria, pleasure potency in degraded sex enjoyment. The pure devotees of the Lord, like Śukadeva Gosvāmī, who was completely detached from the abominable sex life of the material world, discuss this act of the Lord's pleasure potency certainly not in relation to sex, but to relish a transcendental taste inconceivable to the mundaners who are after sex life. Sex life in the mundane world is the root cause of being conditioned by the shackles of illusion, and certainly Śukadeva Gosvāmī was never interested in the sex life of the mundane world, nor does the manifestation of the Lord's pleasure potency have any connection with such degraded things. Lord Chaitanya was a strict sannyasi, so much so that he did not allow any woman to come near him, not even to bow down and offer respects. He never even heard the prayers of the deva-dāsīs offered in the temple of Jagannath, because a sannyasi is forbidden to hear songs sang by the fair sex. Yet even in the rigid position of a sannyasi, he recommended the mode of worship preferred by the gopis of Vṛndāvana as the topmost loving service, possible to be rendered to the Lord. And Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī is the principal head of all such goddesses of fortune, and therefore she is the pleasure counterpart of the Lord and is non-different from Krishna. In the Vedic rituals, there are recommendations for performing different types of sacrifice in order to achieve the greatest benefit in life. Such benedictions, as the results of performing great sacrifices, are after all favors given by the goddesses of fortune, and the Lord, being thus husband or lover of the goddess of fortune, is factually the Lord of all sacrifices also. He is the final enjoyer of all kinds of yajña. Therefore, yajña-patiḥ is another name of Lord Vishnu. It is recommended in the Bhagavad Gita that everything be done for the yajña-patiḥ, yajñārtat karmanaha. For otherwise one's acts will be the cause of conditioning by the law of material nature. Those who are not freed from all misconceptions, vyalīkam, perform sacrifices to please the minor demigods. But the devotees of the Lord know very well that Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa is the supreme enjoyer of all performances of sacrifice. Therefore they perform the sankirtana yajña, shravanam kirtanam Vishnu, which is especially recommended in this age of Kali. In Kali Yuga, performance of other types of sacrifice is not feasible due to insufficient arrangements and inexpert priesthood. We have information from the Bhagavad Gita 3:10-11 that Lord Brahma, after giving rebirth to the conditioned souls within the universe, instructed them to perform sacrifices and to lead a prosperous life. With such sacrificial performances, the conditioned souls will never be in difficulty in keeping body and soul together. Ultimately, they can purify their existence. They will find natural promotion into spiritual existence, the real identity of the living being. A conditioned soul should never give up the practice of sacrifice, charity, and austerity in any circumstances. The aim of all such sacrifices is to please the yajña-patiḥ, the personality of Godhead. Therefore the Lord is also prajā-patir. According to the Katha Upanishad, the one Lord is the leader of the innumerable living entities. The living entities are maintained by the Lord. Eko bahunam yo vidadati kāman. The Lord is therefore called the Supreme Bhuta Brit, or maintainer of all living beings. Living beings are proportionately endowed with intelligence in terms of their previous activities. All living beings are not actually endowed with the same quality of intelligence, because behind such development of intelligence is the control of the Lord, as declared in Bhagavad Gita 15:15. As Paramatma Supersoul, the Lord is living in everyone's heart, and from him only does one's power of remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness follow. Mata smriti jnanam apohanam cha. One person can sharply remember past activities by the grace of the Lord, while others cannot. One is highly intelligent by the grace of the Lord, and one is a fool by the same control. Therefore the Lord is dhiyāṁ, or the Lord of intelligence. The conditioned souls strive to become lords of the material world. Everyone is trying to lord it over the material nature by applying his highest degree of intelligence. This misuse of intelligence by the conditioned soul is called madness. One's full intelligence should be applied to get free from the material clutches, but the conditioned soul, due to madness only, engages his full energy and intelligence in sense gratification, and to achieve this end of life, he will willfully commit, and to achieve this end of life, he willfully commits all sorts of misdeeds. The result is that instead of attaining an unconditioned life of full freedom, the mad conditioned soul is entangled again and again in different types of bondage in material bodies. Everything we see in the material manifestation is but the creation of the Lord. Therefore, he is the real proprietor of everything in the universes. The conditioned soul can enjoy a fragment of this material creation under the control of the Lord, but not self-sufficiently. That is the instruction in the Ishopanishad. One should be satisfied with things awarded by the Lord of the universe. It is out of madness only that one tries to encroach upon another's share of material possessions. The Lord of the universe, out of his causeless mercy upon the conditioned souls, descends by his own energy, Atma Maya, to re-establish the eternal relation of the conditioned souls with him. He instructs all to surrender unto Him instead of falsely claiming to be enjoyers for a certain limit under His control. When He so descends, He proves how much greater is His ability to enjoy, and He exhibits His power of enjoyment by, for instance, marrying 16,000 wives at once. The conditioned soul is very proud of becoming the husband of even one wife, but the Lord laughs at this. The intelligent man can know who is the real husband. Factually, the Lord is the husband of all the women in His creation. But the conditioned soul, under the control of the Lord, feels proud to be the husband of one or two wives. All these qualifications, as the different types of pati mentioned in this verse, are meant for Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa, and Śukadeva Gosvāmī has therefore especially mentioned the pati and gati of the Yadu dynasty. The members of the Yadu dynasty knew that Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa is everything, and all of them intended to return to Lord Krishna after he had finished his transcendental pastimes on the earth. The Yadu dynasty was annihilated by the will of the Lord because its members had to return home with the Lord. The annihilation of the Yadu dynasty was a material show created by the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, the Lord and the members of the Yadu dynasty are all eternal associates. The Lord is therefore the guide of all devotees, and as such, Śukadeva Gosvāmī offered him due respects with love-laden feelings. Om Adhyana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Ahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitantam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, Lord Śrī Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Bhagavad Pracharaka, have come in this world to establish that the highest truth is established in Srimad Bhagavatam, Shri Bhagavat Rasa Tattva, Korile Prachara, Krishna Tulya Bhagavata, Janaila Samsara. The transcendental truths and mellows of devotional service described in Srimad Bhagavatam can liberate the living beings from tendency for enjoyment, in that sense also bring them liberation. Krishna Tulya Bhagavata is identical with Krishna. It's a Bhagavat Swarupa. It is the transcendental position of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's Krishna himself in a form of a book, Bhakta Bhagavat and Grantha Bhagavat. It's a Grantha Bhagavata. And Lord Chaitanya came actually just to preach this transcendental mellows of devotional service, because no other incarnation till now have given the spontaneous devotional service. The many incarnations before him have given the process which brings the devotee to Vaikuntha through process of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, but Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti was not given for a very long time, and therefore Lord Śrī Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have come to give this exclusive gift of spontaneous devotional service. And Srimad Bhagavatam, being the Shastra Pradhan, is establishing that spontaneous devotional service, especially for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the 10th canto, in 10th canto, Pancharasa Dhyaya, the 5 chapters describing the relationship of Krishna with gopis in Parakiya Rasa. So the relishment of Srimad Bhagavatam is the real purpose of reading Srimad Bhagavatam. It is the idea to give us enlightenment on our Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. What is the real meaning of our daily rituals? What is the real meaning of our prayers? So in that sense we will take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. And these beautiful verses coming in the line are describing sort of Mangalacharana, Bhagavat Mangalacharana. The Sutta Gosvāmī have spoken in beginning of 2nd chapter, Narayanam Namaskritya, Naram Chaiva Narottamam, Devim Saraswatim Vyasam, Tato Jayam Udirayet. Usually we say this verse, but we may not offer obeisances, literally. But Śukadeva Gosvāmī did in this chapter. He exactly did this. He is following that. From the verses 13 till 21, he is offering obeisances to Lord Narayan. And then, like this verse, and then later, in the verse 22, he is offering obeisances to Saraswati Devi. Prachodita yena pura Saraswati. Pura Saraswati. Before Pura, the Saraswati have enlightened the Supreme Lord. And Srila Prabhupada translates here, may the Lord, who in the beginning of the creation amplify the potent knowledge of Brahma from within his heart. So the Lord did that through the potency of Saraswati Devi, inspired, prachodita. And then further in text 24, he is offering obeisances to his father and the compiler of Vedic literature. Namastasmai Bhagavate Vasudevaya Vedase Papur Jnanamayam Saumya Yanmukam Burhasavam. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Srila Vyasadeva, the incarnation of Vasudeva, who compiled the Vedic scriptures. The pure devotees drink up the nectarian transcendental knowledge dropping from the lotus-like mouth of the Lord. So in that way he is establishing the Mangalacharana and invoking the blessings of the audience, Ashirvada, and establishing the topic itself. And this Mangalacharana is full of descriptions of further chapters, and it's sort of introduction to Narayana Sukta and Purusha Sukta of Rig Veda. The Srimad Bhagavatam is Nigama Kalpataror Galitam Palam. It is mature fruit of desire tree of Vedic literature. So if we have little understanding of Vedic literature, we will see the next chapter is Narayana Sukta itself from Rig Veda. Just a second. anyway, I cannot find what he's saying. It's here. Narayana para veda, deva narayanam gajaha, narayana para loka, narayana para makaha, narayana para yogo, narayana param tapaha, narayana param jnanam, narayana para gatiḥ. In other words, Lord Narayana is everything to him. And next chapter is explaining Purusha Sukta, again from Rig Veda. So the whole Mangalacharan is introduction to Vedic knowledge. So we should understand that Vedic, the Srimad Bhagavatam is not different from Vedic literature. It is Veda Upabrimhana. It is the supplement and explanation of Vedic literature. So the one who reads Srimad Bhagavatam automatically gets understanding of all other Vedic literature, but we need to know the connection. So the Narayana Sukta and Purusha Sukta are explaining the creation. So the verses before Mangalacharana, the Maharaj Parikshit is asking Śukadeva Gosvāmī about the creation. So he starts with science, and Srimad Bhagavatam is science. Krishna consciousness is science. Krishna consciousness is not some sort of faith. So we see in questions that he's asking about the creation. And interestingly, that long-term question that why is devotee who have heard about bhakti, because Śukadeva Gosvāmī already explained bhakti, why he's asking about creation? And it's a question about Vyavaharika Lila and Paramarthika Lila. So the main reason why we need to understand Vyavaharika Lila is that we understand how experience comes to being. And that everything what we experience is actually Supreme Lord Himself. Because matter doesn't give any experience. Matter is Achit, it's Asat, Achit and Nirananda. So how can there be any experience in matter? So in that sense, there must be Chit or conscious agent which is giving that experience. So the living being in illusion is thinking that it's having the relationship with matter, prakrita rasa, but instead actually it's having relationship only with Krishna. So that is the main reason why we need to understand Vyavaharika Lila. So devotee understood that he should perform devotional service, but how do I see that Lord everywhere? Narayana Paraveda, Narayana Paraksharaha. Where do I see him everywhere? In this life, in this world, in this reality. So therefore the devotee is not interested only in the Paramarthika Lila, but also in Vyavaharika Lila. He wants to understand the relationship of the Lord with matter and the mercy which he is giving to living beings. So the Śukadeva Gosvāmī with this Mangalacharana is introducing the whole concept of Vyavaharika Lila, or the creation. So especially in this verse, interesting is to see the poetical embellishment, Kavya Lankara called Yamaka. If we see the Srila Prabhupada also points out in the purport, the pati is repeated again and again. Śriyapati, yajña-patiḥ, prajā-patir, dhiyāṁ, loka-patir. What does it mean? Why is it like that? So the Natya Shastra and andhaka Chandrika of Rupa Gosvāmī are explaining that there are 4 figures of speech which are decorating statements, and they are the upama, the comparison, the rupaka, metaphor, the dipaka, condensed statement, and yamaka. Yamaka literally means twin, it means repetition. And there are different kinds of yamakas. Some of the words in these yamakas, they are repeated on the beginning, sometime on the end, sometime in the middle, or one word is repeated. Just like when we chant Vedic hymns, for example, Shamno Mitraha, Sham Varunaha, etc. It's constantly repeated, Sham. Or Swastino Govindaha, Swastino Achitananda. It's constantly repeated, Swasti, so it is for the purpose of invoking auspiciousness. So in this verse, especially the word pati is repeated. So obviously the topic, the subject matter is about the pati, the Lord and the Master, the husband. And in a wonderful way, Srila Prabhupada is describing the pati. The purport itself is establishing the yajña, the sacrifice, the real understanding of sacrifice. So the yajña-patiḥ is said here, or the yajña devata is established that it's Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa himself. And in Bhagavad Gita he is describing actually the Vedic path when he is saying Vedaicha sarvir aham eva vedyaha, I am the one to be known by the Vedas. Then he is saying Samavedosmi, I am the Samaveda. Then he is saying I am Yajña. He is saying that I am the final destination, the gati of all activities, of all sacrifices. He's establishing that those who are worshipping demigods are going to demigods, those who are worshipping Bhutas are going to Bhutas, but the one who worships me, Madhyaji, Yaja, he comes to me. So sometimes we think that Krishna is completely neglecting the Vedic path, but he is actually establishing the real path. It is known that the path of karma kanda is prescribing the worship of different demigods, but the jnana kanda is then establishing that with real knowledge you should worship Lord Vishnu himself, the Para-Brahman. And then when you understand that, then you go back to sacrifice. It's not that when you go to jnana kanda, that you stop with worship. No, then with understanding you worship. In our daily life also we should have that understanding. In the beginning we learn the ritual, we learn the procedure, the formulation, but later through the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam we should go back and perform that procedure, that process with proper understanding. So it's not that Upanishads and Srimad Bhagavatam are against the Vedic path, no, they are establishing the real Vedic path. We are performing Sankirtan Yajna, and we think that chanting the holy name cannot be karma kanda, but it can be, no? It's nama parada. So karma kanda is not just one section in Vedas. Karma kanda is conception, it's mentality which we perform and execute Vedas. Those who consider the holy name to be ritualistic ceremony performed or prescribed in karma kanda portions of Vedas, they do the 8th offense. So it's not that we are free from that misunderstanding, although we perform bhakti. We should still have the understanding of that. And Gita as Gita Upanishad is properly establishing the real purpose of worshipping. Srila Prabhupada also in purport very beautifully establishing the relationship of Lakshmi Devi and Narayan and Radha and Krishna, and mentioning that everyone is trying to get the favor of Goddess of Fortune. But they don't know that her husband, the Śrīyāpati, is Lord Narayan, or husband, so-called husband of Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī is Krishna. So, in order to get the blessings of Goddess of Fortune, we need to worship Krishna actually, because she doesn't give benefit if we don't worship Krishna. And the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies are working in a way only if there is some slight devotion over there. You must do some sacrifice. You need to sacrifice your time, you need to sacrifice the ingredients, the dravya, you need to follow the path, to recite the shlokas, to recite the mantras in order to please the Lord, and then only the Shri or Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī is giving the benefit. So we should never worship Lakshmi Devi separately from Krishna or Lord Narayan, or worship Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī separately from Krishna. As Srila Prabhupada said, when there was a photo or a painting of Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī, he said, this is not proper. But it is also avidi purvakam, improper worship, just to worship Krishna. Because as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we worship Krishna in the mood of Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī. Srila Prabhupada is saying, we are worshippers of Krishna. So, to be a worshipper of Krishna means what? Means to follow Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī, because she is the Aradhana. She worships the best. So in that path, our Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas have established the process how we can please Krishna, because they know how Śrīmatī Rādhārāṇī is pleasing Krishna. So the complete worship is worship of Shri Radha Krishna. And it's very important from aspect of worship, but also from social aspects, because if we just worship them separately, Veda, then we'll get some kind of social deviations, just like too much of dry renunciation, or we get opposite, like a modern feminism, because there is no unity between Radha and Krishna, the masculine and feminine, Purusha and Prakriti. So we are actually worshippers of Shri Radha Krishna in that sense. And the process which we worship, as I said, is established by Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas, and Vaishnava Smriti Acharya is Gopal Bhatta Gosvāmī, who by the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have written Satkriya Saradipika after studying the Kobilya Grihya Sutra of Shatapatha Brahmana of Samaveda. He established for Gaudiya Vaishnavas the Padati, Samskara Padati, which is not opposed to mellows of devotional service, because the followers of Karma Kanda, Veda Vada Rata, they are substituting the worship of Vishnu with worship of different demigods. But in Satkriya Saradipika, the Gopal Bhatta Gosvāmī is establishing the worship of Krishna and his associates. So that is the proper worship of Krishna. For example, instead of worshipping Ganesh, we worship Vishwaksena, the commander-in-chief of army of Krishna, etc., etc. So to worship Krishna and his associates is the highest kind of worship. But when we worship his associates indirectly, separately from him, Veda, his mixed devotees, demigods, then this is avidi purvakam. If we worship his pure devotees in connection with him, then this gives transcendental result, Shreya. Otherwise, we just get prayer or material results which are temporary. And sometimes there is this misconception that yajñas, this is for Treta Yoga. And for Satya Yoga, there is dhyāna. For Treta Yoga, Kritaya. How is going the verse? Exactly. So the Krita Yoga, Satya Yoga is the dhyāna. Then Treta Yoga is the yajña. The Dvapara Yoga is paricharya, deity worship, and Sankirtan in Kali Yoga. So we think we don't need to follow any of this. No? Either dhyāna or yajña or deity worship, Pancharatra, Of course, deity worship we do regularly, no? So is that also out of Sankirtan Yajna? No. And what about yajnas? All of us who got Diksha, we were on yajna. So so we don't do that. So no, we have proper understanding of that through the Vaishnava Smriti. In Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said, Sarva mantra sara nama e mora shastra marma. The essence of all mantras is holy name. This is the purport of all scriptures. Sara nama. So in ancient times when people would gather on ceremonies, they would chant mantras. And the essence of all mantras is nama, the holy name. So the real purpose of all sacrifices is to chant the holy name. And the holy name is the giver of benediction. So in Satya Yuga, before dhyāna, they would recite Narayana Paraveda, there is a mantra for that. In Treta Yuga, during the yajna, they chant the holy names, just like when we do yajna, we chant Om Krishna Ananta Mukunda Madhava Hare Govinda Vamshi Mukha Shri Gopi Jana Vallabha Bhakt, etc., etc. So many holy names. And in deity worship also, so many of the holy names and having the personal relationship with the Lord. So we should not be confused by this. The purpose of this formulation of ritualistic ceremony is to chant the holy name. And why we follow it, it is because it supports Sankirtan Yajna. Sometimes we think that we just do Sankirtan, we chant on japa, yajnanam, japa yagyosmi. Among all sacrifices, I'm doing just japa. But how much you chant japa? Bare minimum, no? So what do you do rest of the day? So you engage as per your nature. If you are Brahmana, then engage in deity worship. And yajnas. And in yajna is then a lot of chanting, and as I said, and there are ahutis for Krishna and his associates, for Krishna Avarana associates. So in that way you chant the names of Krishna and his associates. So that is the proper understanding, and we should not be confused. Sometimes within society we have that kind of a quarrel, or they are doing just smarta rituals, or these devotees are just sahajiyas. No, there are categories: Bhagavat Vidhi, Pancharatra Vidhi, and Vaidika Vidhi. Bhagavat Vidhi is a special recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam and holy names, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. Then Archanam is Pancharatra, and Vaidika Vidhi is Varnashram. It is following our occupational and spiritual duties. So if there is no Varnashram, where is family? Because one of ashrama is Grihastha ashram, so we should dismantle family or what? Not all these dharmas are supporting the Sankirtan Yajna. So we should understand in which way we can personally follow it. And Gaudiya Sampradaya is very much different from others, because in other traditions and Sampradayas, the more orthodox practices are those which are specifically Shruti, which are more ritualistic. But in Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, the orthodox is spontaneous devotional service. Smartavya satatam Vishnu vismartavya nayatu chid sarve vidini shredasyur etayoreva kinkaraha. So that is our orthodoxity and orthopraxy. Lord Chaitanya during the day, dine Harinam Sankirtan, ratre Bhagavata Svadana. So in inner circles, Vajatiya, he is relishing Srimad Bhagavatam. In public Vijatiya circles, he is chanting holy name. Srila Prabhupada never discussed the pastimes of Radha Krishna and intimate relationship between them publicly. But you see, devotees always read Krishna book to him and discuss with them. Same like Lord Chaitanya. The Swarup Damodar Gosvāmī and Ramananda Rai, they were reading the Gita Govinda and other literature to Lord Chaitanya to enhance his ecstasy. So Srila Prabhupada was also hearing Krishna book from his disciples. So that is the orthopraxy, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. And the rest, regulation, is actually as per our conditioned nature. So in that way we can surround around the most important thing, the Panchanga Bhakti, Bhagavat Shravana, Nama Sankirtana, Śrīmūrti Shraddha Seva, Sadhu Sangha. The 5 most important limbs, and those who are the best in that, they naturally lead society. And others who are not able to engage in all spontaneous ways, they regulate themselves to Pancharatra and Vaidika Vidhi. And finally, the Gaudiya Vaishnavas are not interested in any of the results given by sacrifices, yajña-pala, secondary results, but only with primary result, and that is relationship with Krishna. Raso vaisaha rasam ye vayam labdvananda bhavati. The one who reaches the storehouse of rasa, he himself becomes blissful. So we don't desire anything from our sacrifice, as Krishna is saying in Gita, yagyartat karmanaha. Perform the work karmana only for the sake of sacrifice. Don't work for yourself. This is the bondage, karma bandhanaha, that will bind you for this world. The original sacrifice described in Purusha Sukta, in the beginning, in primary creation, there was a Lord and his primary associates. They wanted to expand the creation. They said we need to do sacrifice for that. And then the Lord sacrificed himself first. So he taught us actually what means to sacrifice. So he sacrificed himself first. They tied him actually and offered. So that is the first sacrifice. And we see that in best way, the culmination of sacrifice and the whole creation is the sacrifice of gopis in their rāsa-līlā, as Srila Prabhupada mentioning in this purport. Because they have sacrificed everything, even the Vedic social customs. They were not considered, will they be ridiculed? Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva dharmam parityāja mam ekam sharanam vrajam. So just surrender unto me. And who did this the best? It's gopis. So sometimes we think that there is no need to follow the dharma, sarva dharmam parityāja. But we should renounce the mentality in following such ritualistic ceremonies. But the ceremony itself can stay, but the mentality and understanding is changing. So that is real sarva dharman parityāja. Otherwise, the whole society can be ruined if we don't perform our daily duties. The society is ruined. So devotee who is performing any kind of ritual ceremonies, he is doing first vidhi, and through that vidhi he is trying to establish relationship, and when he have relationship, then he is further progressing into a spontaneous devotional service. With this I would stop, and we are already above time, and if there is any question, I will answer then after, because yes, Prabhu. Prabhu, usually they don't allow questions after 9. It's Prabhu is here. Is it allowed? Excuse me? Personally, yeah. So I'll be here for questions. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari.